This is
Make It Plain.
Make It Plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make It Plain.
Get woke.
Shopify is a global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business and sell more with less effort thanks to the Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/redcircle, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/redcircle now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/redcircle.
New from Radiotopia presents Red for Revolution, an audio drama about Black love, queer romance, and liberation. Join Jasmine, an 18-year-old navigating her queer identity while learning about her grandmother's secret love affair. Through her discoveries, we're transported back to 1971 to witness two remarkable women embark on a romance that defies all conventions. Subscribe to Radiotopia Presents and listen to Red for Revolution wherever you get your podcasts.
Ladies and gentlemen, as always, we are happy to have you join us on these Thursdays for, once again, another edition of Thursday Coast. And as we all know, Thursday Coast gets its name from Daily Coast, the largest online progressive community, and the founder and mayor, I guess. And mayor.
Right.
Now you big. Mayor.
I'll take mayor. I'll take mayor. Yeah.
I like mayor better than president for this. You know, it sounds more close when you're president.
Yeah.
And president, the name president has such bad connotations these days.
Terrible.
Terrible connotations.
Terrible.
Marcos is with us as always. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, Mark. I'm curious, how can you focus on studying for your PhD program with all the craziness happening in the world?
It's difficult. It's very difficult. In fact, I'm getting to the end of the semester, and I'm going to have to kind of tune some things out in order to really focus. But it's tough, especially when part of my charge, as some of you know, my program is public theology. And so it's a theological response to some of the things we're facing right now. And when these things are all happening in real time, trying to filter it out and focus, it's no small thing. So I'm doing the best I can. I will say, and I wonder if this is the case with you, man. I've really stopped watching a lot of news channels. News channels were always running in the background and constantly going. So the TV is not on as much anymore. And I know I've heard that from a lot of people, especially after November. I don't know if that's the case with you. How often are you? And when I do, I'm looking at international news, like either Al Jazeera mostly or BBC, just to get a different perspective. But what about you, man? Are you still watching as much news as we used to watch?
It's been a long time since I've actually watched TV news. Now, what I'll do is I'll read transcripts of TV news. For me, reading is just it's faster, and I can skim through and get to the good stuff. My self-care is, as I think people know, like that's my piano. I'm a classically trained pianist, and that's always been my instrument. But I've really been obsessed with my guitars. So I've been practicing a lot. I actually pulled a Summer of '69 the other day. Like my fingers started bleeding. I was practicing so much. So as a Bryan Adams, Summer of '69, played my sixth string till my fingers bled. And I'll put on some kind of whatever, some show that can be background noise, and I'll put on the subtitles so I can read what's going on, and then I'll just play on the guitar, and I'll just practice on whatever I'm working on at the moment, or just jam. And I'm finding that to be very meditative. And so I definitely think everybody needs to find their Zen and stay healthy, because right now we're still in shock and awe mode, and we're gonna have to truly get activated next year and make sure that we win the midterm elections big and even pull off the miracle and take the Senate. I mean, it's an impossible map, but given where Donald Trump is taking us and how his actions are cratering, I mean, it's just a disaster all across the board. Given that, I think there's a chance for us to take seats that would never be in play in a normal year. But we need to be rested and ready to do all that hard work next year. And so we just can't get caught up in the day-to-day of the Trump craziness. I mean, obviously we're paying attention to a certain degree, but we cannot be obsessed with it because it's designed to
Right.
wear us out. And and Mark, I'll say, like, Daily Kos traffic is down. People are doing that, and I'm okay with it. It's tough from a business side of things. I gotta, pay the bills. And so, but I also, I can't be like, go to Daily Kos 10 times a day, right? Like, no, it's okay. Visit every 3 days. Like, take care of yourself, stay sane, do self-care, because next year we're going to be asking a lot of people. So this year is sort of like just ride out the storm, because there's not much we can do right now.
And as you mentioned it, we know part of their job is to overwhelm.
Yeah.
Is overwhelm. Some of these executive orders are every day on everything.
Yeah.
That's not even natural. No business runs that way, no entity. So there's people around him say, let's mess with people today. Let's do this, do nothing after. It's like, there's a checklist of foolishness. Just really to antagonize people. You're running the United States of America. Who has time to walk into the Smithsonian and single out certain exhibits that are too woke? Yeah. That's not a job. That's not something that anybody, and I'll be honest with you, even the craziest of MAGA, as Hillary would say, the deplorables, I don't think they're sitting at home or calling the White House switchboard saying, when are y'all going to get that exhibit out of the Smithsonian? So a lot of this is just busy work, and it's also easy because that takes no skill and no knowledge, Marcos.
Mm-hmm.
It takes no skill or no knowledge or any government experience or administrative experience to make crazy statements, do crazy EOs, threaten museums, and in place of real, actual, thoughtful, professional work. So let's be clear. So Mark is right, folks. You can't get, and I've had to say, most people I know have walked away, but some folks, every day they call me, this is this. I said, listen, breathe. Because this is insane. And some things you just gotta let go and plan for the future. But what I do want to do.
Wait, before you you're not transitioning. I just want to one more to sort of reiterate your point. Today in the news announced that Donald Trump is going to do an executive order targeting ActBlue, right? And so people are freaking out because obviously ActBlue is such a key component of the progressive infrastructure. Almost all fundraising goes through this. Billions of dollars a year in political fundraising goes through it. Daily Kos fundraising goes through it. So even my own fundraising team was freaking out about that. It's nothing. It's a nothing burger. They're targeting ActBlue for foreign contributions. ActBlue already bans foreign contributions. And in fact, they've been investigated by one of the committees, in the House. So Republicans have been investigating it. And the Republican chair of that committee in his political piece said, oh, yeah, they proved that they have systems in place that filter out and block out donations from overseas sources. There's nothing there, right? But they want to create this whole aura that he's doing things. And Trump doesn't want to be negotiating, all this art of the deal BS. Like, it's all BS. He can't handle it, right? So by executive order, he gets to make dictator proclamations, and we're taking on ActBlue. It's nothing. It's saying ActBlue can't take foreign sources of money. That's already the case. But people are freaking out. And obviously people on the left, if you're like all like invested in it, they're like, oh my God, they're coming after our things. You got to be vigilant. Don't get me wrong, Mark. I'm not saying don't be vigilant, but also understand that a lot of this is just screaming into a void. It means nothing. Most of it is legally impossible. You can't just proclaim stuff. A lot of them are things like, I'm instructing the IRS to do this and this and this. Well, the IRS also has to go through a process. It's subject to legal attacks and legal reviews and administrative reviews. Like, there's a process. And this is why, this is one of the reasons Trump is going after the Supreme Court, right? And trying to ignore judicial oversight, because most of what he thinks he's doing cannot actually be done. So I think people need to relax. I actually think, like you said, step away sometimes. You're not missing much.
Right.
You're not- I mean, you won't miss the big stuff. You won't miss he announces tariffs. You won't miss the big stuff. But the little stuff, these executive orders are designed to inflame, to demoralize, to keep his base engaged, thinking that he's actually getting stuff done when he's actually really not getting much done. And just realize that our government was built in a way, and we've seen it from the other side. It's built to stop things from happening. It is very, very hard to do things. So Trump can send J.D. Vance into the Smithsonian to look at exhibits and decide which one. You know what? In 3 years, we're going to reverse all that shit. We're going to win the White House. That stuff is going to go out the window. They're creating these hollow victories, these fake victories to make them feel like they're actually accomplishing something, when in reality, it just makes them look silly. It's nonsense. It doesn't move the needle in any way politically. And our culture is more resilient than a display at the Smithsonian. Or we're going to get through this. Yeah. But to get through this, we have to have the energy to fight, which goes back to self-care. Like, it's okay. It's okay for you to step away for a few days, catch up really quickly, don't spend, less doom scrolling, definitely less doom scrolling before you go to bed. You know what? Sleep is very, very important to self-care. And just realize that the fight's not over, and we'll engage it. But today's not the place to engage the fight. There's no fight to engage. Right now, we're just getting assaulted. And sometimes the best way to do when you're getting assaulted is just to batten the hatches. Just lay low for a little while, recharge, regenerate, and get ready for next year, because next year is going to be a ride. And not just against Republicans, but we got a lot of open Democratic primaries like Dick Durbin in Illinois. So we get a chance actually to really get some great, fresh blood into the Senate, into the House, get more of the young, energetic, resistance-minded Democrats that we're going to need for the fights ahead, as opposed to these kind of dinosaurs who are just they're stuck in like, oh, we got to be collegial to Republicans, and that stuff like that. Those days are so gone. Maybe they can come back, but it's going to only come back after the Republicans prostrate themselves and beg for forgiveness. Right. And even then, I don't know if I would trust them, because I don't trust the base. I don't trust the Republican base. But it's just realize it's a new world, and there's new tools to fight it. And God, I love Cory Booker. Like, I love Cory Booker. I think he's great. And but these pictures of him showing other senators how to post on Instagram, it was sad. It was sad. And God bless him for doing the work, right? Because somebody's got to do it. But like, we need representatives in Congress and in state houses that know how to communicate using today's communication tools. And if you're confused about what an Instagram is, which is the thing from 10 years ago, we're not talking the latest and greatest. We're not asking you to do TikToks. If you don't know what an Instagram is, like, maybe it's time to pass the baton to some fresh blood.
Agreed.
Location, the lab. Quentin only has 24 hours to sell his car. Is that even possible? He goes to Carvana.com.
What is this, a movie trailer?
He ignores the doubters, enters his license plate. Wow, that's a great offer. The car is sold, but will Carvana pick it up in time for...
They'll literally pick it up tomorrow morning. Done with the dramatics?
Car selling in record time.
Save your time. Go to Carvana.com and sell your car today. Pickup fees may apply.
Hackers don't need much. Just one leaked password can potentially unlock a treasure trove of personal information, leading to stress, pain, and permanently wrecked credit. Don't be an easy target. Get protection by Aura today. Aura protects your identity, finances, and family, all in one powerful app. Get real-time alerts, safeguard your accounts, and block scams before they happen. If identity theft strikes, we help you recover. Stay protected at aura.com/listen. That's AURA.com/listen.
You have piqued my interest. You said that Trump is surgically, not just targeting, but surgically targeting his own base.
It's been amazing. It's been one of the big themes I've been writing about the last 3 months is just how effective Trump is in making life miserable for his own supporters. It doesn't make, I mean, no, I wouldn't admit it. It makes it easier for me to deal with the way he's hurting my people, to see that he's also hurting his people, that he's an equal opportunity force of destruction and chaos. And just in the last 3 days, there have been natural disasters in North Carolina. Well, the after effects of the Hurricane Helene in North Carolina they're still trying to rebuild after the massive floods from last October. It was October. You had natural disasters. You had you had tornadoes in Arkansas.
Right.
And then in West Virginia, you had flooding, massive flooding.
Right.
So West Virginia and Arkansas are two of the most red states. North Carolina obviously was a battleground state. Trump won it narrowly. In all three states, FEMA has now rejected federal aid for reconstruction and individual aid specifically. Now, if you remember back in October of last year, in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, FEMA flooded in, Biden flooded in aid, and Republicans created literally fake news about how Trump was, or how President Biden was ignoring red Republican counties in North Carolina, and used that to really gin up this narrative that Biden was completely disconnected from helping actual people. And one of the narratives they use is that FEMA only gave $750 to people in North Carolina. Now, keep in mind that $750 was just an immediate, like, you need to buy water, you need to buy food, you need shelter right now. Here's $750 with no paperwork. That's what that was. That wasn't the sum total. And we're talking 2-3 days after the hurricane, right? Like, Republicans try to mock it as they're only giving $750. Keep in mind now that in Arkansas and in West Virginia, FEMA's given zero. They've completely said, we're not going to help. And Trump has said repeatedly, we're going to help. Only the states can handle natural disasters. It's not the federal government's job anymore to handle natural disasters. Now, Mark, what states get hit by hurricanes? Florida, Alabama, Mississippi,
Right.
Georgia,
You're right.
Texas. What states get hit by tornadoes? Kansas, Arkansas, the Great Plains states, Nebraska. What states get flooded? Iowa, West Virginia. If you look at a map of where FEMA spends its money, 2/3 of it right now goes to red states, and it's actually skewed because a big chunk of it just went to the LA fires, and California is big, and that was a very, very expensive natural disaster, of course. But I'll say California can pay, in a world where there's no FEMA, California can handle its natural disaster. It's the 6th largest economy in the world. It can actually handle its natural disasters much better than a West Virginia that depends on the federal government for 50% of its budget. 50% of West Virginia's budget is federal dollars. That was Joe Manchin. They ain't got this no more, right? They're a poor state. They don't have the ability to cover those expenses. Arkansas, it's a much poorer state. Florida, which is getting hit with billions of dollars of hurricane damage every year, is going to have a hard time without federal dollars subsidizing that. Forget Alabama, Mississippi. Those are two really, really poor states, right? So you get rid of FEMA, that hurts Republicans, and particularly in rural areas, because those disasters mostly, the fires in LA is different, but most of tornadoes and flooding, that's mostly happening in rural areas, not in the big cities. You have things like Medicaid expansion. Almost 70% of that goes to rural America. This is Obamacare, Medicaid expansion, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. About 70% of Medicaid expansion goes to rural areas. That is heavily, heavily Republican. Once again, you get rid of that, you're really targeting Trump's rural base. And then there's the fact of things like school lunches. Now, remember, we've talked about this before, and you were very surprised that last year was the first election where Trump, the Republican candidate, won people making under $50,000. Poor people voted Republican, wealthy or the elite, educated, voted Democratic. So Democrats won the over 50,000 vote. They won the over 100,000 vote. Trump won the under 50,000 vote. When you're getting rid of school lunches, when you're getting rid of food stamps, these are all now hitting Trump's new base. So you have a Republican, never met, then you're talking about tariffs, right? Because a tariff, a 10%, right now it's just a 10% tax because he raised 10% tariffs on everything, baseline, plus the China ones and additional ones, but 10%, you have a 10% tax on all Americans. Who can weather a 10% tax on food? The person making more than $50,000, or the person making less than $50,000, where food is a bigger part of their budget. So you had poor people basically say, all right, screw the Democrats. They didn't lower prices. Prices were too high. We can't afford to live. And suddenly we care about trans athletes in college sports for some reason that we'll never be able to explain. So, okay, we're going to vote for the Republicans. We're going to vote for Donald Trump. So congratulations. Now you voted for Trump. Trump is still acting like a Republican. He's still screwing poor people. He's trying hard to pass a $3.5 trillion tax cut for billionaires. Mm-hmm. And the only way to pay for that is to eliminate FEMA, is to eliminate foreign aid, which, by the way, foreign aid wasn't really foreign aid for foreigners. It was a subsidy for American farmers who were growing the food that was sent overseas. Oh, there's another surgically precise target at Trump's base is foreign aid, USAID. That was USAID is money for U.S. farmers. Then you talk about things like, so Trump passed a regulation that fines Chinese flagged shipping ships, like ocean liners that carry cargo liners. Any Chinese flag cargo liner in a U.S. port has to pay an additional fee. Turns out that West Virginia coal is mostly transported to China in Chinese flagged cargo shippers. So once again, now West Virginia coal is too expensive for China. So China is now getting its coal from other places. China is also getting its soybeans from Brazil now because of the sanctions or the tariffs. Ohio, Iowa, and Midwest soybean is too expensive for China. So now Chinese American farmers are once again begging for a bailout because they're getting hammered because tariffs are killing them. They can't actually afford fertilizer because of the tariffs against Canada. That's where 90% of the fertilizer comes from, is Canada. Suddenly that's 10% more expensive. And farms are having a hard time absorbing all those extra costs. So down the line, when you look at everything he's done, it's amazing how targeted it has been to his new base, which is poorer, less educated Americans. And the hope is that they're like, oh yeah, that was a mistake. We're not going to vote for Trump no more. And that they swing back to the Democrats, or, at worst, they're like, you know what? No, nobody's good for us. We're just not going to vote. I'd be okay with that too. Ideally, they decide to vote for the party that actually wants to make their lives better. But this is why Trump's numbers are falling. He's now less popular than he was at this point in his first term, which makes him the least popular president in at this point since polling began in the 30s, right? Number one is 2025 Donald Trump. Number two is 2017 Donald Trump. He literally is the worst president ever. I still can't believe this country voted for him once again. But it just shows that his brain doesn't work in a way that says, I'm going to reward my supporters and punish Democrats, which you'd think that's what he would want to do. But for whatever reason, he just doesn't function that way.
Mm. It's amazing how people allow themselves to continue to be fooled by this. But I wonder, I mean, Marcos, let's go back for a minute. What will they ever really realize it, do you think?
The Republican base?
Yeah.
So I look at the broader math, right? The vast majority, you have a 30% of MAGA dead enders. They ain't going nowhere, right? I just read a piece by a Venezuelan. Venezuela is a very Republican constituency, Venezuelans, because they buy into that the Democrats are communists, like Maduro in Venezuela, right? So
Right.
they, like Cubans, they buy into that frame. So this Venezuelan, Joe Biden created a temporary protected status for Venezuelan refugees. Donald Trump rescinded that, and now Venezuelans are getting sent back to Venezuela. This guy who voted for Trump very proudly blames Joe Biden for Trump deporting his wife, saying that Joe Biden didn't, by using an executive order, he did not make it safe for people like Donald Trump to rescind it, and he gave people false hope. Keep in mind that Joe Biden tried to keep his wife in the country. Donald Trump literally deported her. The Democrats tried to codify immigration reform, and Donald Trump torpedoed that in the Senate and killed it because of the election. He wanted that issue. And this guy's going to blame Joe Biden, right? So that crowd exists, and nothing will shake them from that.
Right.
We don't need them, though. 10%. Oh, about 80 million people voted for Donald Trump. 76 million voted for Kamala Harris, something like that, 77 million. I'd have to look at the exact numbers. 10% of 80 million is 8 million. So suddenly Trump is at 72, Kamala Harris is at 85. It's not even close, right? 10%. That's my goal. That's for 10%. Add in 10% of people who didn't vote, who thought, oh, both parties are the same. Well, no, both parties are not the same, and now they're seeing that. You get that kind of shift, and the politics of this country are dramatically shifted. 5% makes a ginormous difference. 5%. In a normal baseline election, like this country is 51% Democratic, 49% Republican. If we turn out, we win. We didn't turn out as much last year, and Republicans did turn out. So if you go from 51-49 and you go 5%, and now suddenly it's 56, and then 5%, 45, 56, 45, that's a 10-point swing, right? That's a 8-10-point margin. You can bleed 6 points and still win an election. Like that's where we need to go. So the hope isn't, will everybody open their eyes and see the light of the ways and realize how dumb they were? No, the vast majority will never do that. And as frustrating as it is what it is. We just need 10%, Mark.
Just 10%. I want to also touch on this, though, because does this not play a role? The tariffs. And he's back and forth and all over the place on that. I don't know that people still seem not to get it, that the tariffs, too, are that they have to pay for. We have to pay for those out of our own pockets.
Yeah.
And that, too, is going to have a detrimental effect on his own base, is it not?
Absolutely. And what's really amazing about the tariffs is that he cannot blame those on Joe Biden. He made the big show. He was going to save the economy, and this is Liberation Day, and look at all the billions that we're going to make, and the country's going to make, and China's going to pay for these tariffs, and of course prices are going up, and people are noticing. Like, I mean, I see this in right-wing forums where people are noticing. There's a discomfort, and we haven't even hit the full brunt of the tariffs because manufacturers, suppliers, they were stocking up before the tariffs hit because they knew they were coming. So in the next couple months, these price increases are going to really start hitting, and that's when you're going to start really getting, I think, a lot of discontent. And Trump won at the end of the day. Really, all the screaming about trans athletes, and and immigration. He won because of prices. He won because prices were too high, and the prices, egg prices are so higher than they were before the election. Like, people are noticing these things, and they're not happy because Trump promised to drop prices on day one. Obviously, that was never going to happen. It didn't happen, and it's going to be a tough sell for Republicans. This is why Republicans like Rand Paul are saying we're going to get our asses kicked next year if these tariffs remain. And this is why I think Trump is starting to really get jittery. He's suddenly backed off on firing Jerome Powell at the Fed because the markets were like, hell no. And he's talking about unilaterally lowering tariffs on China, even though China's not even talking. They're not even negotiating right now. And he's gonna, I mean, what he could do is the Trump thing to just declare victory and then drop all tariffs and say, we negotiated things, and nobody, it's not to be true. He lies all the time. People, enough people might buy it, but there's been enough. I mean, dropping tariffs completely back to zero at this point. I don't know if that would make a difference. Now, there's one factor, Mark, that's going to be quite interesting. He's going to get a victory of sorts. And that's the price of oil is going down, because it always goes down during economic recessions because people aren't buying as much oil because they can't afford it. And furthermore, OPEC decided to raise its quotas of production, in part to try to starve out American suppliers, because right now the U.S. is the largest driller of oil, but it's shale oil. It's more expensive to extract, and it's more expensive to process than just like Saudi oil. So I think part of it is to try to bleed out some of those American, which again, American oil producers, big Trump constituency, are being harmed by Trump policies, quite surgically, in fact. But oil prices are going to go down. So watch him make a big deal about gas prices at the pump going down in the next few months, even though the reason they're going down is in large part out of his control, is what OPEC is doing, and is in reaction to the slowing global economy, which is reducing demand for oil, which is going to drop prices. But he'll declare victory, and it'll be annoying, but...
But so much for I'm the businessman.
Oh, yeah.
Art of the deal. And the tariff thing, somebody wrote a story. It was a little misleading because it suggested that the root of his tariff foolishness goes back to his USFL days. I didn't quite see the connection, but the bigger point was he's dumb.
Yeah.
The USFL, and there's even I think there's a 30 for 30 that hasn't been seen in years, folks. We need to pull that back up. But Trump, they had the USFL, and he was all in that. New Jersey Generals, whatever. And I think that was the name of the team, Herschel Walker. He decides, it's doing well, because it's at a different time of year. He decides, let's go head to head with the NFL. Killed. Pissed all the owners off. Everybody lost money. Because he's so, much, he's supposed to think he's some business guru.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with taxes. Dumb, stupid decisions because of his ego, or maybe it's, sometimes not, obviously I think some of the stuff he's doing in this country with the United States government is straight up sabotage. Because again, and we haven't gotten into this, and maybe I'll get an anonymous person, some of the anonymous people I'm talking to come on camera with us, Marcos, and we'll do like 60 minutes and blur their faces and give them a fake voice. But they have been kind of showing me how some of these decisions, like procurement, is not covered in the news every day. And what's happening in the business of making the government run. And how in those, the way those little cogs work and the process, they are literally dismantling all of that so that everything grinds to a halt and will not be able to function. Not to mention, they're trying to sell off government property and buildings on Pennsylvania Avenue. Now, if you do that, that's not getting covered a lot. If you do that, Democrats come back in 3 or 4 years, you can't get that property back, right? Yep. Because that stuff, if you're going to sell a building on Pennsylvania Avenue that's prime property, the price on that is going to be too high for the government to even be able to afford to buy back.
Mm-hmm.
So there is the sheer stupidity, but then there are those teenagers and whoever marionettes them
Mm-hmm.
who are literally trying to hamper, undermine, and sabotage the very function of what a government does. And folks, it's not always about it. It's the dotting of the I's and the cross of the T's. You'd be surprised what it takes to keep things going. And they are jamming that up, canceling contracts,
Mm-hmm.
selling buildings, preventing people. And wait a minute, now when they sell buildings, what happens to the staff? Well, you already want to riff all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And those remaining, you want to send them to different places. I can't say too much right now, but I know there are at least a couple of agencies, because I'm not supposed to know this. There's at least a couple of agencies where they've already let the employees, okay, those of you who are staying, we're sending you to 3 different states in the United States. So people have to relocate, and maybe they can't.
They're just trying to make them quit.
Yeah, trying to make them quit. But even if they where are they relocating to? How does that function? How does that work? Yeah. So it's again, folks. I take people back. Watch The Americans. It's on FX now. I think it's on Hulu or whatever. You can look at it, and this is what he is doing. This is what is taking place. So you're right. 3 or 4 years, we can reverse some stuff, but there's some things that will be even harder to reverse that we're not even aware of in terms of the micro and the nuts and bolts of how things are run.
Yeah.
And that's what we ought to be scared of. What is the latest in with negotiating deal Ukraine? In the war,
it's yeah. I mean, Trump and Rubio are threatening to walk away. I think JD Vance to walk away because nobody wants peace. And we tried too much. We tried so hard. It's been a couple of months. Like, these people they don't know how to, Trump doesn't know how to negotiate. This is why he's issuing executive orders, because it makes him feel like a dictator without actually having to do the hard work that a president normally does. I mean, why do you think they get gray? Because you got to sit there and deal with like 100 freaking senators and 435 House people, and they all got their little agendas. And how freaking frustrating is it to get anything done? And then you finally get something done, and then the Supreme Court comes in and and has thoughts on it too. It's a system designed to not let to gum up the works. It's to not let radical change happen. That was by design. As frustrating as it is for I think everybody who's in power, us or them, that's the way the system was designed. Right. And Trump has zero ability to cut deals. Like, we know that The Art of the Deal was ghostwritten. He didn't actually write any of it. And he does not know how to cut deals. It's no surprise that he bankrupted a casino. He does not know how to cut deals. And the Russia-Ukraine thing, when they're like, you got no cards, saying that to Zelensky in the Oval Office, Trump has a card. He has U.S. aid. What has happened since the U.S. has basically cut off aid is that the European nations are both stepping up, but also in the last 3 years, Ukraine has developed its own arms industry, and it's actually kind of amazing. And so European nations are kind of like, oh, we'll just give you money so you can afford to build, your weapons yourself. I mean, you got this. And remember, Ukraine designed nuclear. Ukrainian scientists during the Soviet era were the ones designing nuclear missiles and ballistic missiles and aircraft and ships. Like, that's the engineering base in the Soviet Union, was actually Ukraine. So this is a very engineering heavy country. So it's taken years because it takes a while to stand up whole new industries, but they've done that. And so European nations are now basically funding with cash the Ukrainian military industrial complex. It does hurt to lose U.S. support. Obviously, it's going to hurt. But Ukraine can fight indefinitely with what it has now, particularly since it's now a drone war. So everybody's hunkered down. Anybody tries to move forward, it's just swarms of drones. It's terrifying. It's terrifying to me, given that my son's an infantryman in the U.S. National Guard, and that's the world that he may have to operate in if there's a conflict. But it's created a situation where Ukraine's manpower disadvantage, because it's a much smaller country, is mitigated by the fact that you just have swarms of drones and that take out anything that moves. So things are a little static right now. Ukraine doesn't have the ability to take back its territory, but it definitely has the ability to just bleed Russia economically. And when we talk about lower gas prices, which Trump is going to brag about, that actually hurts Russia, because that it's its one main source of revenue, foreign revenue, is petroleum. And with lower gas prices, again, its cost of production with sanctions on top of that is going to make it so that they can't make money. So, so the U.S. is pissed. There's a story in the European Politico that the administration tried to get one of the European nations to stop supporting Ukraine, because really the U.S. strategy hasn't been to punish Russia to the point where it gives up its territorial ambitions. It has been to basically starve Ukraine, so Ukraine has no choice but to basically surrender to Russia. And this European nation essentially told the Trumpies to go F themselves. And so they're frustrated that Europe isn't capitulating to Putin because Trump wants to desperately. And let's not forget, there was one country that did not get sanctioned by Trump when he added tariffs, and that was Russia. Like, he is desperate to be, who the frick knows, but he is desperate to give Putin a lifeline and give Putin a victory in Ukraine. And the rest of the world's just kind of not really that interested. So now they're threatening to walk away, which quite frankly might be the best case scenario. It's like, leave.
Yeah.
U.S. was giving satellite imagery. Japan already says that they'll step up and they'll provide Ukraine the targeting imagery, satellite imagery that Ukraine needs. Everybody else is sort of stepping in. And, Trump did have an argument at one point where the U.S. was paying a large part of a war that was in European soil. I mean, Europe is wealthy in its own right. Europe should pay more for its defense. That's not an indefensible argument. Europe has stepped up. And given that Europe has stepped up, that European aid plus, we're not even talking U.S. money. We're talking just like armor vehicles that are sitting in depots just rotting away. Like, just send that stuff over. Keep sending that stuff over. Yeah. That would have made a huge impact into the trajectory of the war. It's too bad that Trump won, and that's not going to happen. But it just sort of showed how hollow Trump's claim was, that he was only upset that Europe wasn't stepping up. Europe stepped up, and he's still basically backing Russia. So he's just decided to make friends with Russia at the expense of our actual allies in Asia and in Europe and here in the Americas as well. It's perplexing. I think Republicans are not happy with it. Congressional Republicans, I think they're not feeling particularly comfortable with it, but they still can't quit Trump. But this also kind of leads into and I made this prediction before, that I think by year 3, it's going to be Republicans are going to be pushing to impeach Trump. Like, he is such a disaster on so many different fronts that they're going to need to distance themselves from him. And ideally by then, Democrats will have control of both chambers. But of course, any kind of impeachment conviction is going to need 2/3 of the Senate, and that's not going to happen without Republicans. And I suspect that he is such a disaster on so many different levels that they're going to have to be able to say, like, oh, he's not a real Republican. Like, here, we'll help you get rid of him because he's not a real Republican. Good luck with that. But I don't see how they're not going to have a choice. And it's going to be things like this, with making common cause with dictators and our enemy. I mean, right now in the United Nations, the U.S. is voting with North Korea, Eritrea, Russia, Cuba. I mean, this is where we're at. We're voting with the worst of the worst dictator, regimes in the world, and it's embarrassing. Like, it's appalling to see the U.S. in that company.
Well, if you're right, and I hope you are, about Republicans being fed up with him at some point, then hopefully that comes into play in 28 when he decides he's not going to leave.
Yeah.
And or he tries to nullify elections. I mean, that just can't.
Yeah.
But
And
the litmus test will come. We know the court, the Roberts court, we don't know. Can't put a whole lot of faith in them. They're going to take a birthright citizenship. That will be a telltale sign. Yeah. Something as sacred as that. If they decide that there's no right to birthright citizenship.
I mean, it's not even sacred, Mark. It's literally the plain text of the Constitution. I mean, if that's not a 9-0, there's something rotten. There's truly rotten at the Supreme Court.
But see what they're going to say. It's an amendment.
Yeah, but the amendment's the Constitution. There's no wiggle room there.
Yeah, but look, man. As far as I'm concerned, the amendment, I guess the 15th says we have a right to vote, and still have to pass laws to enforce that.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? So that's the tricky thing about our democracy, and some of the falsehood of it, that we can have, you and I can see that written in the Constitution. Then why does it have to be enforced by law if it's in fact there? So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm less worried about birthright citizenship than I am about some of the other things they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Hackers don't need much. Just one leaked password can potentially unlock a treasure trove of personal information, leading to stress, pain, and permanently wrecked credit. Don't be an easy target. Get protection by Aura today. Aura protects your identity, finances, and family, all in one powerful app. Get real-time alerts, safeguard your accounts, and block scams before they happen. If identity theft strikes, we help you recover. Stay protected at aura.com/listen. That's AURA.com/listen.
Folks, I want to do this just as we go, and I touched on this before. I should have shared it earlier, but I touched on it in the previous broadcast. Trump surgically targeting his own base. I shared this quote with you before because I think it's important, what LBJ said. And this is to Trump's base. If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. He'll give him somebody to look down on, and he'll give him somebody to look down on and empty his pockets for you. That's Lyndon Johnson himself saying that. All right. And this is still a phenomenon. What I did not do before when we were together was lift up the MLK quote. It was a little bit longer, but the Southern aristocracy, this is what he said at the end of the March from Selma, Montgomery. The Southern aristocracy gave the poor white man Jim Crow when his wrinkled stomach cried out for food his empty pockets couldn't provide. He ate Jim Crow, a psychological bird that told him that no matter how bad off he was, at least he was a white man, better off than the black man. And when his undernourished children cried out for the necessities that his low wages could not provide, that's MAGA today, y'all. School lunches. He showed them the Jim Crow signs on the buses and in the stores and on the streets. In this modern era, we're talking about the Smithsonian, I guess, and in the public buildings.
And trans kids.
And trans kids. And his children, too, learned to feed upon Jim Crow, their last outpost of psychological oblivion.
I mean, I see them all the time on conservative forums where people say, I like what he's doing with trans kids and immigration, but these tariffs are making my business shut down.
Yeah.
Like, you'll see stuff like that, but they'll still have to be like, but I like what he's doing with two things that have literally nothing to do with me. And in fact, the immigration keeps your prices lower. So it actually has something to do with you. But because this fear of brown and black people and trans kids, they're willing to be like, okay, it's losing their job. It's a price they're willing to pay. It's absolutely bizarre. We're seeing it. You're right, Mark. That's MAGA. We're seeing it in action. That's Trump's genius.
Folks, as always, great to have you join us here on Make It Plain, and especially on Thursdays for Thursday Coast with Marcos Melissas. Please follow Daily Kos everywhere and go to dailycoast.com. And this interview, in fact, will live at dailycoast.com and also across all of our social media, Instagram, at Minister with 2 T's, Make It Plain, everything. So share it. Let's talk about it. And let's stay motivated. Let's do self-care. Let's not be down or depressed. We have been here before. America has been here before. And we have fought it before with fewer resources than we have now. All right. So let's do it, folks. Thanks as always, Rose.
Yeah, appreciate you and your listeners.
Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. As always, perform an act of kindness on behalf of an elder or young person. Write a letter to a sister or brother who just so happens to find her or himself incarcerated. Offer libations to the ancestors upon whose sturdy shoulders we all now stand. And above all, give thanks to the God of your understanding by whatever name you call her and him. All God asks of us is that we give each other love. Thanks for giving MIP love. And please remember to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.